Hi, just here to share some of my life lessons more as far as marriage is concerned and trying, at least trying to divorce proof your marriage if you value it. Of course, there's extenuating circumstances and some things are completely out of your control and you end up separated or divorced. This is not intended to make you feel bad. If you are still in your marriage and you're having challenges, potentially I might share something that may work in your relationship. I don't have all the answers. I do have a history of being married 39 years, but I don't have all the answers. But I see so many marriages that end unnecessarily, and nobody says anything helpful. I mean, they can criticize, but nobody says anything helpful. So I'm just trying to share some helpful hints with you in hopes that it helps in some way. I do want to say thank you to those that have subscribed. It means a lot to me, and it gives me the motivation necessary for me to put another video together. I don't have a rhythm like every Tuesday, every Friday, or something like that. So I randomly just put a couple on per week. I may settle on certain days, but I haven't done that yet. So as I think of things, I just bring them to you as I think of them. I write them down and then I try to share them with you. Again, I don't have all the answers and it's never meant to bring any kind of bad feelings because you weren't able to make your marriage work. You have another chance, God willing, and at that time, maybe you can exercise some of the things that you will learn here. You may see where, wow, if I had known that before, maybe I wouldn't be divorced. That's okay. Take it as a lesson and move on into the future. The one thing that I do want to share with you is that I'm sharing these things with you, and you take those things and put them in your marriage backpack because they may not apply to right this minute, but still, it's good information to have. Now, I want to pick up where I left off because I left off where believing lies and all of that. I want to deal with another lie, and that is that, oh, marriage is nothing but a piece of paper. It's just a contract. And marriage, it may be written on a piece of paper to solidify the union, but the marriage really happens before you sign the paper. And that is in the heart and spirit of the two people that are coming together. And so it's more than a piece of paper. That piece of paper is an outward showing of what has already happened on the inside, where you have made a decision. This is going to be my life partner. This is going to be my best friend, my go-to, my boo. Okay, so I just want to just share some hints with you and hope that it helps you in some way. Again, thanks for subscribing. Subscribe. It keeps me going, keeps me motivated, makes me work on the next thing coming. Okay, let me share. Sometimes we may feel like because we're in the midst of a challenge, we think, I just married a jerk. And that can go both ways. Men or women can think this in their head. I've married a jerk. There's no help for this person. And I don't know if I can do this. But the reality is, they weren't a jerk when you met them. They were not a jerk when you spent your time with them. They weren't a jerk when you were intimate with them. If you were, but now they're a jerk. It's not a new revelation. If they were a jerk when you met them and they're still a jerk, that is just the way it is. A lot of times we get into relationships thinking that we can actually change that person from who they really are because we didn't take the time to get to know who they are. And we think that we can change them. You can't change anyone. The only person you can put forth good effort to change is yourself. And sometimes you have a challenge with that. But when it comes to another individual, they may change over time, over their own life experience, and become even a better person within the confines of the relationship. But you don't change them. You need to focus on developing your own self and being the best person that you can be. And make sure that you don't get a build a man or build a woman project that you cannot complete because you don't have the tools necessary to complete the project. Make sure that you take the time to get to know a person and know if you are able to really live with them and their flaws, because some of those flaws are not going to go away. Let me give you an example. When me and my husband first got together and when we first got married, he loved cereal. And so he would put cereal in a bowl. Well, he would put the milk in first. And then he put some sugar in the bowl. And then he'd take that spoon and and I always had ceramic or glass bowls. And he would stir and I would hear this clink, 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 clink. And it drove me crazy, but I never said anything initially. It drove me crazy. And then he put the cereal in because he liked to mix his sugar and milk first. And so one day I was just not feeling it and he made his cereal and he started his process that he always did. It was nothing new. And he started this process and I started hearing clink, 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 clink. And I thought, I can't take it. I'm going to have to say something. And so I asked him, do you really have to do all that? It's cereal. You're not baking a cake. And, and I realized this was nothing new. I knew he did this. From the time I first met him, I knew this was how he prepared his cereal. So why was I tripping now? Well, that's a small thing. But sometimes there are larger things that come up in your relationship that you just kind of overlook because you want to be in the relationship or because the person holds greater qualities that's more important than those things. But you have to take into consideration, what if those things do not change? Can I live with them? If you get with someone who's a jerk and they never stop being a jerk, can you live with the jerk? If you get with the cheater, you knew they cheated all the time anyway when you were dating them. And then you get married to them and they continue cheating because the issue was never addressed and dealt with. Can you live with that? You have to make up your mind because what you're doing is you're choosing your evils because we all come with something that may rock your nerves. So you're choosing your evil. And so it's just something to take into consideration when you're choosing a person to be with. So divorce proofing your marriage starts before the marriage. You're proofing it. So when you get into the confines of the union, then you have the tools necessary. You dealt with the issues that you could at that time. Before you went into the marriage and even after you went into the marriage. It is easier to use your lips to say things, to speak negatively about your spouse. And what you are actually doing is speaking it into existence because every time you let it escape your mouth, you're creating it. I hope you know that. Let me give you another example. My husband and I, we have had challenges, as I told you. And but there was one time I made up my mind I was going to speak well of him. I wasn't going to speak evil of him in front of anyone. I was not going to do that. Number one, you don't want to do that anyway, not even in front of your best friend. Tell all the flaws about your husband. You don't want to do that because you don't know what's in their mind. So you don't want to feed them information. They know when to strike because you've given them when to strike. So that's one thing. But another thing is what I did was I started saying in front of people how wonderful he was, how helpful he was, how encouraging he was, how he has always been my best friend. I began everything I wanted from him, even if I didn't have it at that time. I said those things. And I spoke well of him for two reasons. Number one, I was not going to give anybody any information that I didn't want them to have so that they can use it against me. When it came to my husband, that was number one. Number two is I was verbally and outwardly creating a criteria of number one, what people would think about him, and number two, make him think about what he was doing. And after I've spoken so well of him, he began to take control of his own actions and began to meet the criteria. And it wasn't like a force or anything. I said he was wonderful and he wanted to be wonderful. And so he began to reach for the goal that I had set out there when it came to him. Now, that doesn't happen with everybody, but it happened with us. And sometimes in our marriage, again, we think we can change a person, but we can't. What happened was I wasn't trying to change him, I was trying to encourage him and let him know this is what I have to say about you. Also, I didn't want anybody to say all good things, and all I do is argue and tell him what's wrong with him. If he hears somebody say how wonderful he is, he's already heard it from me. So you're not telling him anything new. He hears it every day. And so that's how that's one of my guards. And I share that with you. And so I try to make sure that he feels valued and important, wanted, and needed. And I want him to feel like king of this castle. But guess what? If he's king, I'm queen. So we sit here in royalty in the presence of one another. Really value your relationship that way. But I want you to do something else also. I want you to consider the possibility that if you're having challenges, maybe you're playing a role in it in some way. You have to take in consideration, and for order for something to be an ongoing battle, you need two people fighting. So take that into consideration. Also recognize that you don't control anybody. So don't try and control him. Try and encourage him into the right direction. Don't try and control him, because when you try to control someone, they come out fighting. They're not going to be controlled. That's another thing. And also be aware of the deceptions that people have out there regarding marriage. Don't embrace them. Maybe that's their testimony, but it doesn't have to be yours. And it certainly will not be mine. Now, forget about who's around you. Forget about who's around you sometimes, and just speak well to your husband. One thing that you truly appreciate about them. Put no buts on the end and follow it up with something negative. Just tell them something that you actually appreciate about them and be genuine about it. And once you do that, leave it there. That's compliment number one. Remember, we need 5 before we can even complain anyway. So that's compliment number one. I am not saying ignore issues that need to be dealt with, because if you don't deal with them, they will destroy the marriage also. But you want to cover the complaint with some compliment first. So it's not, again, not seen as you're always complaining they're no good, you see no value in them. It actually affects them if they never say anything to you. It affects them and it comes out in their actions. So just take a moment today, and tell your spouse one thing that you truly appreciate about them, and go la over them today. Until next time, I have another one coming. Until next time, I'll see you later. Again, subscribe, and comment. I'd love to hear what you think. Talk to you soon. See ya.